a commandment from God to engage in natural efforts to make anything that you want done happen. Or that you want done, but something that you think God wants done, you were required to make natural efforts to make that thing happen. And vigorous natural efforts. The litmus test that we gave is make whatever efforts a highly intelligent atheist would make. That's what you should do. Fine. However, there is a Torah prohibition on taking any action that will undermine your belief that it's really all God, that God is in charge, that He's the one who's really doing it. Even though I'm making the efforts, but if by my making the efforts, I start to persuade myself that there's no God, I'm really doing it, I'm guilty of the crime of destroying my Emunah. I'm not allowed to destroy my own faith in God. And there's another Jewish principle, which is you never perform a mitzvah, you never perform one of God's commandments, if in order to perform that commandment, you have to do an avera, you have to do something which is immoral, unethical. So for example, we don't believe in Robin Hood. Robin Hood is a bad idea. You don't steal from the rich to give to the poor. It's a good thing to give to the poor, but you're not allowed to do a sin in order to accomplish some mitzvah. Great. Now, put all three of these principles together into a package, and here's what you walk away with. A person who's at the highest level will behave like King David. Erdof oivai v'asigem, I'll catch my enemy, I'll wrestle him to the ground, I'll put the knife to his throat, and I'll kill him. And I'll know, God, that I did nothing, which is incredible. Like, how could you make such vigorous efforts and then feel that you didn't do anything, that it was really all God? That's a person with real clarity, right? They have an ironclad grip on the reality that they've accomplished nothing, that it's all really God. That's a very religious personality. As a person drops to lower and lower levels of clarity that it's really all God, they have to be very careful to reduce the amount of effort that they make. Because if they make too much of an effort, and they don't really believe that it's God to begin with, if they make too much of an effort, they'll really start to think that they did it. So therefore, as the person drops to a lower and lower and lower level, then the amount of effort that they're allowed to make drops also, until eventually you get down to the biblical example of Chizkiyahu. Chizkiyahu was at such a low level that it was forbidden to him to make any efforts whatsoever. He said, God, I'm going to go to sleep on my bed, and you kill the enemy. And God said, at your level, that's all that can be expected. Because if you made any effort, you would think that you did it, and you wouldn't realize it was me. Okay, you now have half the chart. That's the half of the chart that you're familiar with. But then what happens is this. What happens if somebody's on even a lower level? What happens if somebody doesn't have any Emunah? So if they don't have any Emunah, then they have nothing to lose. They're not going to damage their belief that it's God. They don't have a belief that it's God. Well, if they're not going to damage their belief that it's God, then the mitzvah kicks back in again, and you go all the way back up again, and you start doing all of the Hishtadlus. You start making all of your own efforts again. Because there's no cost. There's no reason why not to do it. The only reason not to make those efforts is it's going to destroy your Emunah. I have no Emunah. Then at least do the mitzvah of Hishtadlus, do the mitzvah and get in there and make things happen. So it turns out that it's a you, right? It's a problem. On one side, you have King David, who makes huge efforts. Then it goes down till you get to Chizkiyahu, who makes very little efforts. And then it goes all the way back up again when it gets to Leib Kellerman, who has no Emunah. And therefore, since he has no Emunah, he makes maximum efforts again. Because he has nothing to lose. So it turns out, a person at the lowest level or a person at the highest level, they both make huge efforts. In between, you have a person who has to reduce their efforts. Yeah. But that person who's reducing their efforts, that's a person who's somewhere between Chizkiyahu and King David. Okay. Chizkiyahu, God spoke to Chizkiyahu. So as soon as you get to that lower level, where God's speaking to you, then you have to be concerned about reducing your efforts, right? As long as you're up here with Leib Kellerman, right, where there's no Emunah to lose whatsoever, you make maximum efforts. That's the mitzvah. Yeah.